Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Film Pundits. We're back to review the ninth episode of The Strain, Season 1. I'm joined with Eric Bradley. How you doing, buddy?
I am fantastic.
Yeah?
So great.
Cool.
Yep.
So, we're going to give our initial thoughts on the episode, and then we're going to jump into spoilers, and then we're going to wrap it all back up for you guys in a nice little package at the end. So, Eric, initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts on this episode were that it was another solid episode. We got some real cool... We got not quite as much action in this one, which I'm okay with. And I was actually excited about some of the backstory we got. We saw sort of the origins of some of our major characters. We saw Abraham doing some interesting things back in the day. We saw how he kind of comes to be where he's at. We see a little bit of backstory on our German guy.
Eichhorst,
yes. And we sort of catch up on Ephraim's family and figure out what's going on with them. And so we catch up on some of our secondary characters who we haven't seen in a little while. And it's funny because I didn't actually realize how long it's been since we saw the boyfriend until they showed that recap. I was like, oh my god,
Me too.
How many episodes ago was that?
That was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Was like, I totally forgot about this character.
I know, and it was such like a big thing that happened. They like left you right on the edge of your seat, wondering what's going to happen. And then it takes us until now to find out what happened. But yeah, it was good. It was solid, and I definitely enjoyed this episode. What about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. There definitely was not as much action, but I feel like I feel like if this series were to do action after action after action, it'd get a little monotonous and repetitive. So it was nice to kind of have a break, catch up with people, like you were saying, characters we hadn't seen for a few episodes.
Yeah. See
see what they've been up to, see kind of like how they're now being integrated back into this story, and to see kind of see at least somewhat of a progression of what our characters are going to be doing for the next few episodes. So we are left on some cliffhangers. There's some things that went unanswered that hopefully will get wrapped up later on. So
yeah.
I think that about does it for just initial thoughts. We're going to jump into spoilers. So if you have not watched this episode yet and you want to come back later and watch it, just go ahead and click on the Film Pundits logo behind us.
Look at that new logo. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It's nice.
So when you click on that, it'll just take you to the very end where it'll give you our final thoughts on this episode and just kind of recap what we talked about here.
Yeah.
So without further ado, spoilers.
Here we go.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so we start off, and Ephraim's son is being dropped off by the obnoxious friend of the mother who, gosh, she's so annoying.
Is that the Jersey lady?
The Jersey, yeah, she's from Jersey. She ain't never gonna leave. She's from Jersey. And so she's dropping off the kid, and he's like, it's okay, there's like no lights on in the home, and there's creepy shadows going around. That's fine. I'm just gonna walk right in. Yeah, it's fine. My mom didn't pick up the phone. There's no possible way that could be a bad sign. I'm just gonna walk straight in. So yeah, he gets dropped off, walks in, and sure enough, runs into Matt, the boyfriend, and we find out what happened to him. He done been turned to a zombie, which, I mean, we kind of saw coming pretty much right from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last time we see him, he ends up confronting two other vampires that he obviously didn't know what was happening.
He was ill-prepared for that
situation.
Exactly.
So he got what he deserved and got what was coming.
Pretty much. So then, of course, Ephraim shows up just in time to save his son. And, oh, man, I'm sure he felt so bad about murdering Matt. I'm sure
he was so heartbroken.
He was really...
Poor guy.
I think he definitely got a little bit of enjoyment out of that. He put a couple of stabs and extra hits in there that I think were probably over the top.
He used... Wouldn't he use a shovel?
Well, it was a silver dagger.
Oh, silver dagger.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he had I'm pretty sure he definitely enjoyed that part.
I think my favorite part though was when Nora was asking him, should we say anything? And he goes, nope, and just walks away. Just leaves. He's like, don't care.
Yeah, they're out back burning the body, and they have a little sort of eulogy for Jim, essentially. Like, finally they have a second to breathe and remember Jim for the person he was, and not necessarily, what he kind of turned into is this flip-floppy kind of good guy, kind of bad guy. So they said a couple nice words about him, and then Nora asks, should we say something about Matt? And Ephraim says, nope, and walks away. So, I mean, it was kind of entertaining to see him just be...
I mean, what does he care, really?
Yeah, exactly.
He's living in his house.
Exactly.
Screw him.
Yep. And so at this point, they had all stopped at Ephraim's home, all of them. Vasily, the hacker girl, Abe, and, his son was there. So they were all there to begin with, but then Ephraim and Nora stick behind, and they're waiting for Ephraim's wife to come home.
Who's disappeared.
Disappeared.
We don't know where she is.
Mm-hmm.
She may have ran into Matt and decided to just like run out of the house or escape.
Something.
No clue.
Yeah.
No clue what's been going on.
Yeah. So they're sticking behind, waiting on her, and eventually they have a little fun. They start making out. They get a little naughty, and then of course
they got real naughty in that bedroom.
They got pretty
I'm
naughty.
watching this and I'm going, oh, cool, okay, cool. Make out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, pants.
Yeah, pants
off.
came off.
Oh,
yeah. And
okay.
and then of course Jersey girlfriend comes home, and the first place she goes is straight into the bedroom, because that's the first place you barge into when you walk into somebody else's house, and catches them kind of getting dressed, and proceeds to get pissed off, which doesn't make any sense to me. His wife left him for another guy, and he's not allowed. It's like, yeah, okay, it's in his ex-wife's bedroom. That's a little weird, I guess.
Yeah.
But other than that, you can't be mad at the guy for doing something with a girl when his wife just left him. He did nothing wrong in this situation, and yet Jersey Girl's all blah, 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 blah. So Ephraim just gives her Nora's phone number, and they go on their way.
I hope she's next on the hit list.
I know, it's so she's so annoying. And so then we get a little bit of Abe talking to the son, and kind of describing what's going on. And I don't know what it was about the son in this episode. He annoyed me. He's like,
I think
my mom liked him, and what's this? My mom is gonna be sad, and it's like all this stuff, and it's like I don't know.
I think the one thing with the actor was I felt like I don't know how old the kid is, 12, maybe 13, but I feel like considering everything that was happening, he took it very lightly, which
he didn't seem to understand what was. He seemed actually to understand it, but not
a little too much for his age. Really. I feel like, yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, it was a cool moment with him and Abe to kind of see Abe's a little bit more vulnerable side. He's a little bit more kind of mellowed out and relaxed when he's around the kid. So that was kind of nice to see. He's been very intense up to this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and he refers to the beasts as vampires, and so the son asks, "Oh, you called them vampires?" And he has this line which kind of stuck with me. I thought it was interesting, and he says, "Yes, there's a power in naming things." And I was like, okay, maybe that's going to come into play later. Like you name something, like maybe that's what his prayers are before he like cuts down the vampires. It's like you name them and you say something, and then that gives you more power or destroys them. I don't know. It's interesting. I thought it was cool. There's just a little tidbit in there that I enjoyed. So then a little bit later we see Vasily bringing the hacker girl up to her apartment and escorting her to make sure she's okay.
Which she very very comically says, "I'm not making out with you." I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah, and then we kind of find out why later when she starts talking about her friend, who's more than a friend. They're very good friends, so we're kind of led to believe that they had a little bit more than just a friendship going on. But apparently not as good of one as she thought, because she gets back and finds all her money gone, and her friend just disappeared. And
stole all that money.
Just a couple minutes later, Vasily's sitting there messing with a little like pickaxe sort of thing. It's like, I don't even know what that is. Like the tiniest little pickaxe you could imagine. I know it's for something. I can't think of what it's for.
Yeah.
But and in walks like the stoner roommate guy she's all like, "Oh, this isn't your room, buddy," and then he starts attacking her, of course. And clicking and
to which I'm like, you've just experienced enough crap to know that that's a vampire.
Yeah, of course.
That's
it's
a vampire.
Lit super poorly in that little part of the apartment, and it's like,
I would assume that you have enough good judgment that you can differentiate someone who's high and someone who's a vampire.
Yeah, exactly. So then Vasily steps in once again, taking care of business. Just no regard for who this is. It's just, you're dead because you're a vampire. Which I'm liking. Yeah. I'm definitely enjoying that.
He just takes care of business.
And we get a little bit more, we kind of see him talk to Abe about that later when they all meet up later at Abe's place. Vasily walks in, looks at the weapons, and Abe says, "Look, we need you because you're the person who just acts. You don't take into account the feelings of people. You just do what needs to be done." Yeah. And he kind of says, I have feelings. And he said, well, essentially don't have feelings. You need to be the enforcer that doesn't worry about that kind of thing. Yeah. So that was a pretty cool scene.
Which I think is really pivotal to the show, because you can't have just Abe going out and like hacking everyone away. You need another more youthful character who can go in, and when someone needs to be killed, kills them. Yeah. No remorse, because at the end of the day, these things are no longer people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough call, but someone has to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then we see the hacker girl. She's talking to Abe in his little hideout, and she admits to being the one who took down the internet and the cell phone signal, and tells Abe who it was she did it for. And so Abe is finally starting to piece this together. He knows that it was definitely these people that were behind all this. He definitely had a feeling that was what was going on before, but he's getting confirmation from the hacker girl. Do you know her name? I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name right now on the top of my head.
Hacker girl's fine. But yeah, so she does spill the beans, and luckily it didn't take her forever like we were kind of thinking it might.
That was one scene that kind of surprised me, that she just flat out said, I know iCourse, I know this whole thing, they hired me to do this job, blah blah blah, and then Abraham asked her, well, can you reverse this? Can you reverse the situation? So it was cool that they just put it all on the table. And now it's just about the solution. They're not trying to figure out what the problem is. They already know what the problem is. They know who caused it. Now they just need to fix it. Yeah.
And so one other thing I just saw in my notes that I kind of wanted to mention is when Ephraim and Nora got caught, and Jersey Girl starts talking to Ephraim, and she's like, you shouldn't be doing this, blah blah blah. And Ephraim starts talking about how much he cares about his ex-wife, and you see Nora sitting there with a real disappointed look on her face, and you can tell that really hurt her after such this experience with Ephraim, which it's kind of hard to tell if this was their first time actually doing it or not. Like, it seems like they kind of had a thing where they had a relationship, they've kissed before, they've talked about being together, but I don't know.
From my interpretation, it looked like they've been together before, like they've slept together before, but I think since the chaos has started, this is the first moment that they've actually had together, alone, quiet moment where they could just unleash their feelings on each other, which I think was a good moment. Some people would think maybe it's a little awkward thing to happen when you're in the middle of a situation like this, but
that's what I'd want to do.
Yeah, well, it seems like something that would happen. You're in a room with someone that you really care about, that you've been separated at times, not knowing what's happening to them. Yeah. So this is your moment to kind of make experience something together when you're in the middle of an apocalypse like this. Yeah. The only thing that kind of, I guess, maybe worries me about that is Ephraim gonna have that same situation with his ex-wife? Is that going to cause a triangle between Nora and him and Ephraim?
Yeah, he sort of really seems to have feelings for his ex-wife still. Yeah.
Which rightfully so. She's the mother of his child. But he does like Nora. So.
And he even says later, "My child will not grow up without a mother." Yeah. Or he says that at one point. I don't know if that was later or earlier. Yeah. But yeah, he's definitely very... And we kind of get a shot of Nora again at that moment, thinking... in her head, she might be thinking, well, what am I? And we kind of see that Ephraim doesn't fully appreciate her for what she seems to feel for him. Yeah. So that's going to be some drama later on down the line.
Which I feel like maybe gives a little insight as to why his marriage failed in the first place.
Possibly. He doesn't seem to appreciate women for what he has in the moment. He just is always distracted by other things. And, that could be the reason. And so we also catch up with Gus and his friend, which we haven't seen in a few episodes either. Yeah. Back in the jail cell, his buddy's definitely not feeling well. And the guard says,
he had too much Strigoi for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. So they get stuck onto a prison transport or jail transport to, I guess it was to the hospital. Yeah. But I don't know what was wrong with all the other people necessarily. But whatever. So they were going to the hospital. And of course, they're driving along, and his buddy decides, "Oh, never mind. I got tongue mouth now," and just attacks the driver, and they crash. Yeah. All the people in the back are freaking out. The one cop that is left runs back there with his gun out, opens the door, and let me just say, cops in this universe are terrible cops.
They're stupid.
You see this thing that just killed your partner with a giant tongue mouth thing that came out, and you don't immediately shoot it. We've seen from
what clue do you need to just take the gun out, aim, fire?
Yeah, these are the most untrigger happy cops in the entire world. They're afraid to pull the trigger on their gun. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So as soon as
they all die.
Yeah. So as soon as the cop gets taken out, Gus picks up the gun and does what needs to be done. He pops his buddy a few times in the head, and I'm kind of surprised killed it. But then again, it was head trauma. I guess so. I guess he shot him in the correct place. He shot him in the head, which did kill him. And then he sort of just takes off, throws the gun, and that's the last we see of Gus for the episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very short. I mean, you just get that scene and the scene in the prison. That's really it.
Yeah, there wasn't much.
Yeah.
And then the last sort of stuff to talk about is all the flashbacks we see in this episode.
Yeah.
So the first time we see a flashback, we see Abe, and he's digging essentially his own grave. They're all out there digging mass graves, and he looks over at Eichhorst, sees him standing there. And did they have a conversation in that first clip? I don't remember.
I don't think it was. No,
they didn't talk then. And then later we cut back and we see Abe snuck back into the workshop to grab that knife that he had stashed.
Yeah.
He manages to grab it, tie it to his ankle really quick before Eichhorst comes in and sort of catches him. And he just asks, what are you doing in here? And he looks nervous and even looks down at his ankle.
Yeah, let's not give it away too quickly.
And at this point, we hadn't really seen him cover it back up again. So I'm thinking, are we going to look down with the camera and see that he didn't even pull his pant leg down and he's that terrible at hiding it? But I guess we're supposed to assume he covered it up because Eichhorst goes on to say, "Oh, you have remorse that you're not able to work on your project anymore and do what you're passionate about. I understand that." And that's about it actually for that scene. So a little bit of insight. We see maybe Eichhorst kind of cares about him a little bit. Oh, they talk about what's going to happen afterwards.
Yeah.
And Eichhorst doesn't give him any explanation. He just tells him essentially get back outside and worry about it later or whatever.
Yeah, Eichhorst is an interesting character in the flashbacks because you see a softer side to him, but you also see a very vile, vicious side to him.
Yeah.
Which kind of gives you some empathy for the character, but then when you see him in the present day, you hate his guts because at that point he's so evil and tormented and twisted. You don't care you just want him to either die or something bad to happen to him. But that's the one thing I appreciate about these flashback scenes. You get to learn really, really cool things about Abraham and Eichhorst and their relationship and how it kind of ended up falling apart once Eichhorst is turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
Which they actually show.
Which they do. But let's not jump ahead too much. We jumped to the end already.
Well.
But, so we also see another clip of Eichhorst in the present day where he pulls the bullet out of his leg and looks pissed about it. That's about all we see of him present day. But to continue the flashbacks, we next see Abe, and he's sleeping in his bunk, and he sees the Master doing his rounds and murdering another person. And so he grabs his knife and waits for the Master to go behind him, and then he stands up quickly to stab him. But the Master is absolutely aware of everything that's been going on. He's like, I know you've been watching me. You've just sat by and seen me do this to people and you've done nothing. And this is your best attempt to do something. And then he just crushes his fingers to the point where you see them and they're all mangled and disgusting.
Yeah.
And
that took me back. I was not expecting that to happen.
Yeah, and we realized that, okay, this Master, he's
powerful.
He's powerful, which we didn't necessarily doubt to begin with, but we're seeing the extent of his abilities kind of now.
Yeah.
And so then we go on to see the next day, Abe wakes up and has a buddy of his just pull on his fingers to straighten them out, which, looked pretty bad. And then he gets in line to be split up into two different sections. One group is going into a truck, the other group is getting in a line. And we see he's going to Eichhorst, and we have this moment of, okay, he's saved. He's going to be okay. Eichhorst likes him enough, I feel, to let him live. That's what I was left thinking the last time we saw him.
Yeah.
Is that he was compassionate enough about this person who he saw has actual talent at creating something that he was passionate about. And I'm thinking, cool, he's going with the group that's good and they're going to be fine. Get as soon as I see him getting into just a group that's standing there, I was like, all right, this is a little concerning.
Ditch digging.
Yeah. And then they all get down on their knees in front of the grave with guns pointed to the back of their heads. The guns all get cocked. And then gunfire starts, and even though nothing really seems to be happening by where they are, all of the Nazi soldiers just disappear all of a sudden.
Yeah. I think it was probably because they were getting invaded.
Well, yeah.
So they were trying to get out of there.
Yeah, that was.
But it was so chaotic and so fast. If you weren't really paying attention and just in the moment, you would kind of miss what's happening, where'd everybody go. But yeah.
So we see all the Jewish people just bolt. They all run, and manage to find an area of the fence that's been knocked down. And for some reason, they all climb over it, even though there's giant gaps in the wire. It's like you could just crawl right through that. Like, they make a big deal about having to lift Abe up since he can't climb.
Right.
And it's like, then you see the gaps and you're like, come on, you could have climbed through that easy. But then they all run away, and we see how Abe was able to survive, even though it looked like he was going to be killed quite a few times. And then we end on Eichhorst. We see him running through the woods, dressed in plain clothing, like he's not dressed as an officer. Yeah, he's running away. We kind of hear in the distance some sounds of people kind of coming after him. And he walks up to this secret bunker that's just there in the middle of the woods, pulls a couple sticks off, and we see him walk down. And he just looks at the coffin and sort of salutes it and drinks to the coffin. And we see, okay, he was definitely in on this the whole time. Yeah. He knew about the Master. He sanctioned this coffin. And then he sort of sits there and starts talking to himself and like saying, you know, I did everything you wanted of me. And for a second, I almost thought, did he have this coffin made for himself? Like, I almost thought for a second that he wasn't actually involved. Yeah. And that he was just in this room, and that maybe he wanted this coffin because he knew he was going to be taken out, or something along those lines. But then
in his own life.
Yeah. And then in comes the Master, and I'm back to realizing, okay, yeah, he was definitely in on it. Yeah. And he says, look, I did what you wanted. Now, you know, give me what you promised me. And the Master takes off his hood, and we see his face. Yeah, and
he's one ugly mother.
He is Voldemort on crack.
With Spock ears.
Yeah, with Spock ears. He's just a mix of all sorts of stuff.
He ain't cute. No teddy bear.
Nope. Yeah, I don't think the hacker girl would make out with him either.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much where we end, and he uses his, what is he, transfer the blood, right?
Well, he slices open Eichhorst's forearm, and then slices a piece of his finger.
That's right.
One worm crawls out down into Eichhorst's arm, and that's what we're left with. Yeah. So now we know how you turn somebody without killing them, and kind of, you know, how power is transferred from the Master to somebody he wants to give power and ability to, which was interesting to leave off on. Yeah. And it was a great end to the episode, I think.
It was. There's been so many good cliffhanger endings to a lot of these episodes. This one, I think, was one of my most favorite, just because you end on a revelation. You're like, oh my god, okay, this is how this happened. Yeah. Now I know. Now I'm aware. I'm aware of the relationship between these characters. You just feel very satisfied by the end of this episode. It really wraps up. It doesn't necessarily wrap things up, but it definitely helps to really cement certain parts of the show that I think are going to be very pivotal later on.
Yeah, definitely. So to wrap up, this was definitely a very solid episode. We got some nice flashbacks that illuminated sort of what we've been wondering about, and seeing what's happened to some of these characters, how they became who they are. And it was just, I think it was a great building episode for a lot of things. It showed us what we've been curious about. It confirmed things that we've been speculating about. And I don't think it necessarily left us with too many cliffhangers. We're still wondering about the location of a few people that we won't mention necessarily, since, you know, we don't want to spoil what happened. But it was definitely a solid episode. I'm kind of almost tempted to give it. I'll give it like a 4.5 out of 5. It was pretty solid. You know, not quite perfect. There were still a couple things, just little things, but overall, I definitely enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was a really solid episode, well written, well acted, really good backstory, really good insight on some of the characters, and it was really cool to just have that scene at the end that kind of gives you more about some of the character, or two of the characters in particular. So. It's really good. Yeah. Really solid episode. Definitely. So if you want to watch The Strain, it's every Sunday, 10 p.m. on FX. Check it out. It's a really good show. First season, obviously, and it's picked up for a second season, so there's a lot more episodes to come.
I'm excited about that.
In the meantime, Eric, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Thanks for the View with a 4 in the middle.
And you guys can find me under all of my personal pages, just under Adam Hlavik. And if you guys like this channel and you like all these videos, please make sure you guys subscribe. YouTube.com/thefilmpundits. Leave us a comment down below. Like the video. share with your friends. Let's get a lot of people in on this conversation. Let's talk about the show in an open forum, and let's see what people like or don't like about the show. And let's just talk. If you also want to find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we're just under the Film Pundits. And we'll catch you guys next week for another episode. Thanks for watching.
Back.